Light rail, or trams, once the pinnacle of commuting in Sydney. In fact, at one point in time, Sydney had the largest tram network in the Southern Hemisphere, a system that travelled in all directions from the CBD and moved over 400 million passengers a year at its peak. By the early 1960s, however, decisions, for better or worse, were made to replace this network with buses, and many of the old trams were either sold for scraps or turned to ashes. For a fascinating look into these old tram lines around Sydney, I'd highly recommend checking out Backtrack's channel to see some great content around this part of Sydney's history. All these decades later, Sydney has slowly embraced the trams again, with the light rail line between Central and Dulwich Hill via Pyrmont and Lilyfield repurposing old goods lines and opening in 1997, gradually being extended the following years, and eventually being referred to as the L1 line. In 2019, in the face of major controversy and cost blowouts, the L2 and L3 lines opened to the public, running from Circular Quay to both Kingsford and Randwick via Central, and taking passenger vehicles off the majority of George Street in the CBD. I can remember what a mess this one was when it was in the building stages and how little faith it faced from the public. But despite a slow start, opening just as the pandemic began and the CBD emptied out, these lines have now seen over 150 million trips registered since opening. Trams are frequent and generally very busy, and the CBD arguably looks much better for it. So where does Sydney go next with this underdog of commuting? We've already seen Parramatta's new light rail open its first stage, with a second stage on the way. Another possible line which has been a major talking point in the past few years has been the repurposing of Parramatta Road to accommodate light rail from the CBD to Burwood, with a possibility to extend to a terminus at Green Square. This proposal has been put forth by Outrack Light Rail, who currently operates the Sydney Light Rail network and is currently awaiting approval from the New South Wales Government. The proposed line would see trams travelling from Green Square through Waterloo and Redfern before joining the L2-L3 line at Central briefly, and then branching off at Pitt Street and following Broadway and Parramatta Road towards Burwood North, creating an interchange with the Metro West station, before heading south to terminate at Burwood. Parramatta Road until recently was the major western road to enter the CBD, with the M4 motorway ending at Concord. Now, with the WestConnex tunnel diverting that traffic away from this road, the opportunity to revitalise this corridor has been recognised, with a vision to transform it from congested, noisy and littered with decrepit old shops and buildings to a bustling corridor where, unlike George Street in the city, light rail and passenger vehicles can share the road. But people can explore the corridor on foot without thousands of cars racing past, spewing noise and other pollution into the air, creating opportunities for new businesses and, quite importantly, new housing. Like any public transport system, the ultimate idea is that commuters do not need to rely on their vehicles to get around. Transforming areas around each proposed station along this corridor to allow housing, retail and hospitality will hopefully ensure less reliance on vehicles. With opportunities for interchanges at Central, Taverners Hill and Burwood North, getting around this part of Sydney could become far smoother. It could also open further opportunities for additional light rail lines to better connections around Sydney. Other connections from Outrack include extensions of the L2-L3 line to Coogee and Maroubra, a new line along Oxford Street towards Bondi Junction and Bondi Beach, and a repurposing of Victoria Road from Rozelle to Melrose Park to incorporate trams. All very good ideas, even though I can foresee a couple of those facing an uphill battle getting approval or support. But as we know, new projects always face some sort of backlash, but generally are embraced once they get commuters moving. So what light rail lines would you like to see in Sydney? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Until next time, happy commuting.